Like John Cleese, you've ever asked the question, what have the Romans ever done for us then? Hmm? Then we might be able to help you answer that question right now. The Italian invaders ruled Britain for many years, of course, and as part of our feature on people, places, and events that make up the story of our area, we're going to talk about what they did while they were around here in this particular part of their empire. So to tell a story is Lee Rymill from the website historyofliverpool.com.
Well, the story of Roman Merseyside starts with them arriving in Chester in the year 70 AD, and then they travelled around our area. And the main evidence we have for this are that there's been loads of Roman coins and pottery and jewellery found right across Merseyside. And the dates on these coins show us that there was at least 400 years of trade with the Romans and people who lived in this area then. Some of these coins were made as far away as Constantinople in what is now Turkey, and they've been dug up in our area 1,500 years later. There was a Roman port on the Wirral. There was a shipping port believed to be in Mells, and there were coins found there. But there was even coins found. One was found next to what is now Anfield Stadium. So certainly the Romans or the people who traded with them were all over our area at that time,
Wow. So there were definitely settlements here, wasn't there?
Well, there must have been, yeah, to account for so much stuff that's been found. And in the 1850s, there was a Roman road was dug up between like the Grassendale and Otterspool area, what follows the line of today's Egbert Road. And it's thought that this road would have led on to Speke and Hale, where other Roman relics have been found. So there could well have been a network of roads across the South Liverpool area. And certainly a road was known to have gone from Chester up to Wirral, where this port was. But probably the biggest Roman activity in the area, and you're not going to believe this, right? There was a tile factory that existed what is underneath the M62 motorway today. So basically, when the Tarbock Island roundabout and the Knowsley Expressway were being developed, lots of Roman tiles were found as they were building it. And these dated from like 160 AD. And we know that the factory was owned by a man called Alice Vidicus. And this was known because his name was inscribed on these tiles and where they were going. And the tiles were going to the 20th Legion in Chester. So basically, in Merseyside, there was a roofing factory that made tiles for the army barracks in Chester. Even today, there is a small little area at the end of the Knowsley Expressway where you can go down and see where this would have been. There's a small path called Ox Lane at the end of Knowsley Expressway, and there's kind of earthworks and weird mounds in the ground where the remains of this factory would have been, and certainly it's known that people have lived in that area, for thousands of years, around Tarbock and Netherley. So it is strange to think, Sean, that I'd say everyone listening to this now will have driven over the site of a Roman tile factory, probably without even knowing it.
Well, I didn't know. And if the Romans were in Tarbock, Speke, Hale, Bank, Garston, did they do a lot more here? If they didn't, why didn't they?
Well, I mean, you're right. They were in these places, and coins have been found, and bits of road. But there's no real buildings and such. And I think to try and understand this, you have to try and imagine that the Merseyside they found was different. The map of it was different to what it is today. So strap yourself in here, because this is a strange thing to get your head around. But there's a belief that the Hoylake and the kind of northeast corner of the Wirral were joined on to Liverpool around that time. And the belief of this is that fossilised tree stumps have been found off the Wirral coast. And also the famous Formby footprints, which are there today, from thousands of years ago, were made in what would have been like wooded marshland mud and not a beach. So there's a suggestion, that the Wirral and Liverpool were joined up by a kind of marshy woodland. And there's even a poem which went along the lines of the squirrels ran from tree to tree, from Formby Point to Hilbury. And that again suggests that they were joined up. So you've got to ask yourself then, well, how did it change? How did it get to the area we know today in the map? And the belief of that is that, archaeologists have found evidence that there were earthquakes around this area after the Romans left. And these earthquakes allowed water to come in and then separated the Wirral and Liverpool. So to answer your question, the reasons why the Romans probably never really came to the centre of Liverpool and never made much of a imprint is that it was mostly boggy marshland. There would not have been an edge to Liverpool the way we know it today.
So the river was rerouted, wasn't it, then, by earthquakes?
You've got it. This is the belief. Yeah, the Mersey starts life as a stream in Stockport, and it was believed to flow into the Dee originally, and it was this earthquake that sort of like forced open the Irish Sea into what we know now as the Mersey estuary. So they wouldn't have known the map as we know it today.
What were the original Scouse Britons like that the Romans might have met here?
Well, they might have been more like us than what we think. You're talking about the Iron Age, the end of the Iron Age, and people were known to lived around certainly all over Merseyside and a lot on the Wirral, and in Liverpool they would have lived maybe on the Camp Hill. In Woolton, you can get a good view of who's coming at you. Calderstones is not far from there, and that's got a burial mound that's older than Stonehenge. So there was a lot of history here, and I think the Romans would probably have met people from that area. And in terms of how they looked, they would have had, they'd have had tattoos and moustaches and long hair and stuff, which they'd never seen before. And in fact, the ancient name they give to the people here was the Picti, which is where we get Picts from, the Pict people, which meant in Latin the painted people, because they'd never seen people with tattoos on before. Oh. So that's how they would have appeared to them.
Wow. It's a fascinating thing, this, and obviously there's a lot more on the website, isn't there?
Indeed, yeah. A lot of this stuff I'm talking about, it's only been discovered in recently. It's only in the last sort of 20, 30 years that, for example, that tile factory, was unearthed. So, there might be more out there to be found.
Well, some of the words that the ancient Scouse Britons used, we still use today, don't we?
Well, we do indeed, yeah. I think if you were to go back to Roman times and chat with the people there, you might have understood some things. You might have known what they meant if they were going to put the trews on, and the trews would have been the word for the trousers, which would have been like tartan wool trousers. They'll have put them on, and you'll have washed your face with a flannel. The word flannel was used back in 2,000-3,000 years ago. Likewise, the word crumpet, you'd have known. They'd have had crumpets. And also, you might have been asked to shut your gob, and your gob was a word that they would have used back on Camp Hill, 2,000-3,000 years ago,
Shut your gob and eat your crumpets. I never knew that was going that far back.
Well, This is it, So, people just think Roman Britain sort of ended at Chester or the Hadrian's Wall, but they were here to a degree. So I would kind of say, to conclude, that I think the sort of Romano Scousers, if you want to call them that, they were similar to us in many ways. In the sense that they'll have gone to Chester for a day out and they'll have bought fancy jewellery and pottery and maybe dropped some of the loose change on the walk home, a long walk home, because this is all the stuff that we've discovered years later. And like I say, I do think there's more stuff out there to be discovered, because so much of this has only been dug up relatively recently. So there could even be like a Scouse amphitheatre or something waiting to be dug up in Netherley or something, Who knows?
I can't wait till they find a toaster where they were doing the crumpets on, I tell you. Lee, it's always a pleasure. Give us your website address.
It's historyofliverpool.com, and you can see some pictures of perhaps what the the outline of the Mersey looked like at that time, before and after the earthquake, and just general information about the times. So there's a lot more to discover. I think in future years of people with metal detectors and the like.
Do you know what? It's an interesting story. He always tells it well, does Lee? That's Lee Rymil from the website historyofliverpool.com if you'd like to find out any more. But that's our pride of Merseyside today. The Romans were here. And I had to laugh at Lee when he went, yeah, they came here, long hair, tattoos, beards. Not a lot's changed, really, has it, to be honest?